Several people dared not sleep at night but instead forced themselves to stand in front of the mirror for 5 hours. Even though exhaustion tormented their bodies to the brink of collapse, they had to grit their teeth and endure. Even with fear written all over their faces, they dared not let it show, because outside the window lurked a group of mysterious alien creatures. Every nightfall, they would gather in front of the mirror, meticulously observing the people's behavior. Any slight resistance could provoke these monsters' wrath, and they would mercilessly tear apart the rebels. Once, someone attempted to escape from this terrifying prison, but the entire forest seemed cursed. No matter which direction they ran, they would inexplicably return to their starting point. And when night fell again, those monsters would emerge in full force, tracking the escapees' scent and cruelly ripping them apart. Despite this, Mina still longed to change the suffocating situation. She was tired of living in constant fear, but every time she prepared to take action, the elderly Madeline would stop her in time. Madeline had spent a long 20 years in this place. She was well aware of the monsters' ferocity and knew that any careless provocation would doom them all. However, Mina only agreed on the surface. While foraging during the day, she secretly left marks on the trees. At night, she would return to the cabin and flatter the mysterious creatures in front of the mirror. After countless days and nights, Mina finally familiarized herself with the surrounding terrain. So, one early morning, she took her beloved bird and dashed out of the cabin, embarking on her escape with hope in her heart. Surprisingly this time, Madeline did not stop her. This made Mina ecstatic. She followed her previous markings, running wildly, hoping to escape the forest before nightfall. She ran for an unknown amount of time without stopping until an open field appeared before her. Just as she thought she had finally exited the forest, reality struck her like a thunderbolt. As far as her eyes could see, there were only endless, rolling mountains. Mina then realized that even if she ran until her legs broke, it would be impossible to escape this cursed place in a single day. Despair consumed her. At that moment, Madeline suddenly appeared behind her. Left with no choice, Mina followed her back. After this crushing blow, Mina gradually accepted the reality of being trapped and strictly followed the rules. However, during one foraging trip, she was grouped with the youngest member, Daniel. Daniel complained endlessly about Madeline, accusing her of being overbearing, always acting as if she knew everything and ordering them around. Mina immediately seized this opportunity and devised a brilliant plan. She deliberately joined Daniel in complaining about Madeline. After gaining his trust, Mina proposed a bold hypothesis. Perhaps they had never actually seen the monsters, and everything was just a lie created by Madeline. As expected, Daniel was intrigued. Driven by curiosity, the two of them secretly approached the cave where the monsters supposedly hid during the day. The deep and mysterious abyss did not instill any fear in Mina. On the contrary, her eyes gleamed with excitement. Unable to suppress his curiosity, Daniel and Mina could not resist the urge to explore and decided to venture inside. Daniel took on the task of controlling the rope from above, while Mina bravely descended into the cave. Everything progressed smoothly, without any unexpected incidents. Before long, Mina safely reached the bottom of the cave. However, there were no signs of the legendary monsters. Instead, she found a heap of human-made tools. Everything was piled up in complete disarray. Mina quickly gathered some possibly useful items and sent them up one by one using the rope. After finishing this task, Mina wanted to explore deeper into the cave. But at that moment, a strange and eerie sound echoed through the darkness. Mina hurriedly called out Daniel's name. Suddenly, a pale hand slowly stretched out, but the moment it touched sunlight, it recoiled instantly. Just as disaster was about to strike, Daniel swiftly threw down the rope, successfully averting a tragedy. However, when they returned with their spoils, they faced Madeline's furious questioning. Little did they know, their actions would soon bring endless trouble to everyone. Fortunately, the items they retrieved proved highly useful. Daniel connected the old camera to a monitor, creating a simple surveillance system to observe the monster's true appearance. But even deep into the night, the screen remained empty. Nothing unusual appeared. Just as they assumed the monsters wouldn't show up, a heavy knock suddenly echoed at the door. At the same time, a bare human leg appeared on the monitor. Before they could react, Sierra stood up in shock, as if possessed, and walked toward the door. A man's voice called from outside.
Please, open the door.
He's back.
However, at this moment, Madeline suddenly blocked the entrance, desperately stopping Sierra from opening the door. She warned that in this pitch-black night, no living person could possibly appear. It was clearly a trick of the monsters. It turned out Ciara's husband had left a week ago to seek rescue, but he never returned. Now that she had a chance to reunite with him, Ciara lost all reason. Just as she was about to open the door, Madeline came up with a brilliant idea. She asked the man a question that only Ciara and her husband would know the answer to. Ciara agreed, but as time passed, there was no response from outside. After much persuasion, Ciara finally regained her senses. However, this enraged the terrifying monster lurking outside. The group hurried back to the mirror, but this time, it no longer worked. The monster did not stop its attack. It began violently smashing the mirror instead. The entire room trembled, cold sweat dripping from everyone's foreheads. They thought they were doomed. Yet, just before the mirror shattered, the monster suddenly ceased its rampage. It was a warning. Furious, Madeline confronted Mina, demanding to know the truth behind the strange objects she had found. Mina could no longer keep silent. She reluctantly confessed everything. Hearing the truth, Madeline nearly collapsed from fear. The next morning she hurriedly returned the retrieved items, hoping to appease the monsters. From that day on, Madeline became deeply wary of Mina and Daniel, deliberately separating them during outings. This arrangement only made Daniel more resentful, and his conflicts with Madeline escalated. One day, while Mina and Ciara were out foraging, they heard a horrifying scream. They rushed back only to find Daniel had tied up Madeline. Before leaving, Daniel uttered a single sentence, then walked away resolutely. Mina hurriedly untied Madeline, and the two of them dashed toward the cabin, but the door was locked. No matter how much they pleaded, Daniel refused to let them in. Meanwhile, the sky darkened. The monsters were coming. Madeline suddenly recalled something and pulled Mina into the forest. They hid beneath a pile of rotting wood, an emergency shelter Madeline had prepared in advance. The decayed wood effectively masked their scent. Meanwhile, Daniel pulls Ciara to stand in front of the glass, quietly waiting for the monster to arrive, oblivious to the safety of the two outside. Mina's heart pounded wildly, fear nearly suffocating her. The monsters soon appeared above them. Luckily, they did not sense the two hiding beneath the wood. Mina shut her eyes tightly, holding her breath, terrified of making a sound. At that moment, Daniel suddenly shouted inside the house,
"They're not in here with us!"
The monsters immediately scattered, searching for Mina and Madeline. Madeline seized the chance and led Mina back to the door. Even then, Daniel refused to open it. Desperate, Mina claimed she had marked an escape route in the forest and could lead them all to safety. Hearing this, Daniel finally unlocked the door, but the moment they entered, Madeline furiously stormed up to Daniel, ready to punish him. As they argued, Ciara noticed something outside. Everyone quickly gathered before the mirror. To ensure everyone's obedience, Madeline finally revealed a long-buried secret. Not only was she a highly knowledgeable scientist, but she had also voluntarily come to this mysterious place with the purpose of studying the enigmatic alien creatures in depth. However, at this moment, none of that mattered anymore. The group was horrified to realize that the ferocious alien monsters were about to break through the door. In the tense atmosphere, they hurriedly pushed the table against the entrance in an attempt to block the creature's attack. During this process, they accidentally discovered a hidden secret beneath the carpet, a square steel panel. With the sounds outside growing increasingly intense and the creatures on the verge of breaking in, Daniel quickly grabbed a metal bucket and began striking the steel plate with all his might. The outer layer of the steel was surprisingly fragile, and before long, it had been battered out of shape. Mina and Ciara immediately stepped forward to help, and soon, a concealed passageway was revealed beneath the floor. Daniel quickly turned the switch, and sure enough, the hidden underground tunnel was exposed. With danger looming over them, there was no time to hesitate. Everyone scrambled down in a panic. At that moment, the table at the entrance could no longer hold, and the windows and walls were on the verge of collapse. Fortunately, in the final moment, Madeline managed to seal the passage just in time, allowing them to escape by the skin of their teeth. However, before they could even celebrate, they were utterly stunned by what lay before them. The underground chamber was stocked with shelves full of food and a wide variety of household tools. Clearly, someone had been living here for years. At that moment, Mina unintentionally caught sight of an old computer on the table. She quickly moved the mouse, surprised to find that the computer was still functional. Though it could not connect to the internet, they soon stumbled upon something even more valuable. Hundreds of mysterious video recordings. Eager with anticipation, they clicked on a video, only to find it was nothing more than recordings of an elderly man's daily life. As they continued watching, their initial fear gradually diminished. It turned out that the old man was a professor specializing in the study of the alien creatures inhabiting the forest. At first, everything went smoothly. He simply observed the creatures' behaviors, but soon, the professor made a terrifying discovery. The monsters came to his cabin every night, mimicking his actions, as if they longed to integrate into human society. Driven by his thirst for deeper knowledge, the professor was no longer content with merely observing from within the safety of his cabin. He went so far as to lure innocent residents from a nearby town with money, using them as bait for the alien creatures. Ultimately, he succeeded in capturing one of the aliens and imprisoned it in the basement. Upon watching this revelation, the group was utterly horrified, unable to believe the professor's madness. One by one, they stood up, unwilling to watch any more of these dreadful videos. However, Mina remained in place, unable to resist her growing curiosity. Almost as if under a spell, she clicked on the final video. What she discovered was beyond her wildest expectations. Within this last recording, the professor had documented a way to escape this place. He had long prepared for the possibility of leaving, and had left a boat at River Point 134. By boarding the boat and following the direction of a bird's flight, one could successfully navigate out of the forest. Upon learning this, Mina was overwhelmed with excitement. She happened to own a parrot.
We'll leave tomorrow.
Realizing that freedom was finally within reach, the group was too exhilarated to sleep. Daniel and Sierra even danced joyfully, celebrating their imminent escape. The next morning, they could hardly wait to set out on their journey. Although the entire cabin had been destroyed by the creatures, they no longer cared about it. Fortunately, Mina had previously marked paths in the forest, which saved them a great deal of time. Before long, they successfully arrived at River Point 134. Mina then released her pet parrot, and the group followed closely behind. As time passed, their excitement grew. According to the professor's video, at their current pace, they should be able to reach the river before nightfall. However, not long after their departure, the once clear sky suddenly turned dark, and a chilling wind swept through the air. Moments later, heavy rain began pouring down. What's worse is that this rainy weather is when the alien monsters appear. They dared not slow down, pushing themselves to their limits as they sprinted forward. Meanwhile, a horde of creatures emerged, swiftly closing in on them. Fortunately, they reached the lakeshore just in time. Without hesitation, they followed the river eastward, searching for the boat. Despite the looming threats, they made it safely to the spot where the professor had left the boat. Just as they were preparing to set off, Sierra suddenly noticed that Daniel was missing. As they turned to search for him, Daniel reappeared, dragging someone behind him. Sierra's eyes widened in horror. Daniel was pulling none other than her husband, who had vanished a week ago. At a glance, Kiara recognized that something was terribly wrong. Her husband bore unnatural, inhuman features, but it was too late. Daniel, too far away to hear Sierra's warnings, ultimately fell victim to the monstrous beings. Snapping out of their shock, the group frantically jumped into the boat and paddled toward the center of the lake. Just as they moved further away, a massive swarm of creatures appeared at the shoreline. It seemed like this time there was no escape, but to their astonishment, the creatures did not follow them into the water. They stood at the edge, pacing back and forth, unable to take a single step forward, watching their prey slip out of reach. The monsters unleashed enraged, echoing roars. The group had finally escaped. They had returned to the human world. However, their story was far from over. Driven by curiosity, Mina visited the professor's former laboratory. At first, she only intended to examine his research on the alien creatures, but unexpectedly, she stumbled upon a horrifying secret. The creatures were not aliens at all. They were once noble elves. Long ago, elves lived in harmony with humans, and some even chose humans as their partners. However, everything changed with the birth of their hybrid descendants. These offspring possessed a terrifying ability. They could shapeshift into the form of deceased individuals. This power instilled immense fear in humans. Driven by paranoia, humanity resorted to extreme measures. They broke the elves' wings. They stripped them of their magic. They sealed both the pureblood elves and their hybrid offspring deep within the ancient forest's abyss. The final clue was a photograph filled with hidden meaning. Mina was stunned to realize that Madeline was the professor's wife. But even more shocking was what the professor's assistant revealed. Madeline had died of lung cancer 20 years ago. It was now undeniable. The Madeline they had known in the forest was never human. She was an elf in disguise. Heart racing, Mina immediately sought out Sierra and revealed the truth. She speculated that the professor, driven by an obsessive desire to resurrect his wife, had ventured deep into the forest to conduct his secret experiments. But in the end, he must have realized that his methods were futile, and so he chose to perish alongside the elves. Just then, something caught Mina's attention. Cockroaches swarming in the sink. It was exactly like what she had encountered in the underground cavern. A terrifying realization struck her. As Kiara pulled up to her home, Mina suddenly understood the woman standing before her was not the real Kiara. Before she could react, Mina was struck down. Madeline stepped outside, her expression unreadable, and began speaking softly, as if reliving a painful memory. She had once been a respected elf. She had once trusted humanity, but she never expected to be betrayed, to be imprisoned in that cursed forest for eternity. Then the professor arrived, promising to free her. She never expected him to turn on her, to raise his gun against her. With no other choice, she had to kill him. And now, she had taken Mina's form to follow them here. Seeing that she had nowhere to escape, Mina took a deep breath and tried to convince the other party. In fact, she is not really an elf, but a descendant of humans and elves, which is why she can move in the sunlight, while her companions cannot. You have half-human, half-elf blood flowing through your veins, and over time, you should have come to deeply understand what it is like to be human. You will protect us out of love, and you will want to hurt us out of anger. This is the complexity of the human character, with its good and evil sides.
You don't know me.
I think there are others like you out there. What if you could find them? We don't have to be alone anymore.
I hope you're right, Mina.